Group G table looks now after the second round of matches. As you can see, England and Belgium both level on goal difference. They're both level on goals scored as well. So if the final match between the two countries was to finish as a draw, fair play, the amount of yellow and red cards would be the way the two teams are separated. At the moment, England have 2 yellow cards, Belgium have 3, so that would determine the final placings. There are the final group matches, Panama and Tunisia on Thursday at 7, kicking off at the same time as England-Belgium, which will decide who wins the group. But England through to the last 16 with Belgium from that group. Damien Duff, 6-1. What did you think?
Yeah, big well done. They were ruthless, they were efficient. They've come through the game, I think, injury-free. Second half, they've conserved energy, made substitutions, took their foot off the pedal a bit. You know, there's 3 types of people that watch England for me. There's the ones that build them up to enjoy watching them fail. There's the ones that build them up because they're maybe delusional enough to think they actually have a chance of winning it. And I guess the third type would be the ones that are kind of watching them this time around. You know, no expectations, no pressure, just encouraging, supporting them. Let's see how they go. And I think the most important thing going forward now is for that group just to stay grounded and just to let England players go about their business quietly now and not to get carried away and start building them up, because I think they've been impressive, and they've been impressive since the start of the tournament.
Which group are you in?
I'm just going to let them go quietly about their business and I'm certainly not going to get carried away, but a big well done.
And Keith, which classification do you put yourself in there?
I would say the latter.
Okay.
I said at the top of the programme, for years and years, this generation of English teams has been built up to fail, and they've struggled with opposition like this down through the years. They've dealt with the opening 2 games well. I do think that late winner against Tunisia just relieved the whole camp and let them focus on this game with that little bit less pressure on it, and they've dealt with it very, very well. Eamon's alluded to it before, tougher tests to come.
Yeah. Which I'm just going to have to complete the trilogy here. Are you in Group 3 there in terms of the way Damien very eloquently described the English supporters?
I'm in a permanent state of delusion.
That's a different question.
I go in. I'm very pro-England. I'm very pro the people of England. But I think what gets people's back up is the hype in the media and the expectations from English commentators that, you know, everything is great. I think they've had an easy start, a relatively easy start to the tournament. Tunisia and Panama, you couldn't ask for more. But on the plus side, and it's a big plus, things they've worked on the training ground have yielded goals. I think they're obviously a happy camp. The players are all well bonded. And Harry Kane, their main man, has a hat-trick, which is massive for a striker. You know, the striker, a confident striker, a confident Harry Kane, you know, could make up for deficits elsewhere. So it's good, but I wouldn't dream of getting carried away, because the real tests lie ahead, and Belgium, beginning with Belgium, if that match. But I can see them now, because the group they're going to play is either Japan, Poland,
Senegal,
Colombia. They've all looked not so good. So you could see England getting to the quarter-final without much difficulty, and then they meet the really good teams. So I'm glad. It's good for us. We know the players, and I'm deluded, Damien.
And we're not turning up the hype machine to 11 just yet.
No.
We'll leave that for others to do. OK, but it is an impressive scoreline from England. And Keith, I'm just wondering, you know, if you go back on the struggles that they had, say, at the Euros, at the 14 World Cup, at the 2010 World Cup, you know, the way this team is performing, would, say, the 14 team or even the 16 team from the Euros, would they and the setup have struggled to beat a team like Panama, or were Panama just awful?
When you look at the way Gareth Southgate approaches games, it's in a positive manner. He's trying to take fear out of the equation. When I look at those teams in the last 15 to 20 years, they have played with an element of fear, not particularly wanting to go and joining up with an England team. It's been a bit of a chore. It's a stark contrast to the teams we would have played for Ireland. That was our release from club level if we haven't had a particularly good run. Well, it was an enjoyable environment to come into. But we've played with players, I'm sure Damon's the same. I've played with players that do not want to go and play for England. And that is a horrible thing to say, to not want to play for your country. Whereas he now has created a club-type environment where the players seem to be buying into what he's doing. Tactically, they may fall down. The system, we're going to question when they come up against bigger teams. But in terms of a progression of a team, what he's got at his disposal, I don't think he could have done much more so far.
Eamon, that was one of the points that was made, say, go back to the Iceland thing in 2016 at the Euros, that as the match was going away from them, it was said that some of the players were thinking about the headlines. What way is this going to be in the paper? The Graham Taylor turnip thing and all of those. It's all history now at this stage, but they had those thoughts. So obviously Southgate is constructing something
and just
different.
to confirm what Keith has just said, Paul Scholes retired from international football. I mean, he's one of the greatest players England have ever had. It would have been unthinkable a generation ago for Bobby Charlton to say, I'm not playing for England anymore. But there's been many players, a number of players, who got out of it for that very reason. That I think Wayne Rooney suffered seriously from the expectations that were placed on his shoulders. He wasn't able to cope with them. So it wasn't an enjoyable experience. I think Keith is right. This is an enjoyable experience. You can tell Lingard and Sterling and these guys have bonded. You can see them sitting on the bench playing a little bit of football with their socks. It's that kind of environment that is a pleasure to be in, and the result compounds that. So now they're buzzing and they'll fight for each other. Harry Kane has delivered. He'll be confident. They believe in the set pieces they've worked on the training ground. That's huge. For everything you do on the training ground, if the set pieces come off, there's nothing more satisfying, is there, than something you've worked on happening in a game and happening in a World Cup game. You think, wow. And Steve Holland, the coach, will take a lot of pleasure from that and satisfaction from that. So it's good. It's a good news story, a really good news story. They may go overboard. You know, we may see stuff tomorrow that's crazy in the paper, but they've done really well. They failed to beat teams like this again, as Keith and Damien have said so many times in the past.
Just go back to something Eamon said about Lingard messing about. You can see the jovial nature that they have around the camp. Vardy in the press conference leading up to the game, they're allowed to be themselves, and I think that's important. Roy Hodgson, very structured, very disciplined in his approach. Capello was like an army camp. This is a stark contrast, and if you want to get the best out of players, you have to let them be the way they are at club level.
For example, Gareth Southgate didn't take the smartphones off them. Who took the smartphones off them? Was it Capello? Didn't have the phones. You know, all that stuff, the childish stuff. Southgate appears to be more grown up about it.
Yeah, you have to hand an awful lot to Southgate. Eamon just said there, the bonding. Like, people think it's needless stuff. He took them off for army days, built up a real group sphere, camaraderie. So I think an awful lot is down to him. I think his dad was in the army, so that's where the link is. But even little stuff like that goes a long way. I've questioned it in the past. Does it mean that much to an English player in a jersey? You know, willing to die for your country. I know it's a bit overboard, it's a football match. But I get that when I see Irish players, I get that when I see other teams, but that was always a doubt in my mind when I looked at England. Did the shirt mean that much to them? I think they preferred playing for their country. Whereas I think now you look at the group and he showed them, which is, should you have to do that? But he showed them how much it is to wear an England jersey. Lads, how much it should mean.
You're hyping them up.
No, we're just actually identifying the difference between success and failure. I mean, Steven Gerrard, he's another player who was often given a very bad press, very hard time, when he didn't do for England what he was doing for Liverpool. This was always the allegation. You don't do for England what you do for your club. Paul Scholes is another example. And the things that, the camaraderie that you need, if you don't have it, we know from our own experience in Saipan. You know, we lost the captain, great player, home. It does matter. These are intangible until you do them wrong.
We had as well the Ferdinand comments, Keith, you know, and Lampard talking about cliques within the group along club lines. Now, I remember reading that and hearing it and thinking, that's nuts stuff. But, you know, he has built this group, like Eamon mentioned about Rooney. Rooney was just sort of gently eased out of that squad. Southgate managed that extremely well. Joe Hart the same. You know, like he gambled with the goalkeeper who has made the odd mistake and stuff at club level. So, look, you know, nobody's going to get, well, in this side of the water, get too over the top. But he has done most things right up to now. And actually, to think he didn't even want the job when Allardyce was removed. He was, OK, I'm quite happy just
initially.
to...
He's done really well. And the players that he's got at his disposal are nowhere near as good enough, good as the ones that have been available for the last managers, 2-3 managers. But as a group, they look stronger. We're going to pick holes in terms of where they're a little bit short, what they need to tweak. I think that can get you a long way as a team. They won't win it, in my opinion. They won't come close to winning it. But he has done a very, very diligent job. And it just shows the managers in the past, those issues at club level, the Chelsea, Liverpool, Man United divides, all these little cliques, it's the manager's responsibility. If he senses that within a dressing room or within the hotel, wherever they're staying, he needs to iron those creases out. You can't be having that at international level. Get a little committee together, get the big hitters together. This needs to be sorted for the greater good. You're playing for your country here, lads. Put that to bed.
It's very notable. The Irish players turn up. They love playing for Ireland. I mean, you guys, it's always been the same. But not in England. But there are things they will have to sort out, nevertheless, tactically. And they have a real opportunity now to go to the quarter-final. And if you get to the quarter-final, you're one step away from the semi-final. I know this sounds obvious. But if they get to the semi-final or the quarter-final in his first major tournament, they will be very happy.
Good
and they'll feel, they've achieved something. Don't you think?
But there is a chance, and again, I'm not getting carried away, I'm still in Group 3. But like, the group they meet is Colombia, Poland, Senegal, Japan. Like, I don't know whether I'd want to come
Wouldn't
first
keep you awake at night.
or second. No, and then after that, it's Germany or Brazil, who haven't started off that great. So,
or Mexico.
You know, or Mexico, you beat one of them, all of a sudden you are in the semis, and all of a sudden we have a serious team on our hands, and we are getting carried away.
Yeah, OK. Well, let's just bring it down to... Well, no, let's make the point about, you know, a team needs a goal scorer. With the faults, bearing in mind what you're going to show us later on with the issues that you all have with England's defence particularly, and the setup, they have a guy who is scoring goals for fun and is incredibly confident and is, as you guys have said, world class. Let's have a look. This goal, this was the 6th goal, and actually his other goals are more definite, but he didn't know a lot about this thing, and when we saw it, we thought VAR had made a mistake the first time we saw it.
The first time to the naked eye, so again, well done technology, because it actually was onside. I think it was Torres keeping him on. Great pocket, you have to say, from Loftus-Cheek. Gets a bit lucky, but when it's Harry Kane, I guess it's not lucky, because he lives for goals, it's in his blood. His mindset just reminds me of Ronaldo. But yeah, that picture there looks offside, but VAR obviously show after that he's onside. But that is Harry Kane. Like I said, he just reminds me of Ronaldo. He'll have got up out of bed this morning and just believed that he's going to score 3 goals. Robbie Keane was like that. Robbie Keane would be on his way to a football match thinking, I'm going to score 3 today, and he's the same. And as I said, there's VAR there, correct decision. So, you know, it's obviously here, it's going to stay around, so we ain't getting rid of this. Yeah, as we'll touch on after, you know, it has its faults, but his last touch of the game, his 3rd goal, absolute monster of a player, just born to score goals.
He said about 12 or 18 months ago he wants to win the Ballon d'Or, and it was laughed at. Now, when you take into the equation Messi's age, Ronaldo's age, he is getting into that bracket, or he's already there, in my opinion, of that next group of players that are potentially able to gate crash that. He's so focused in how he approaches the game, dedication, phenomenal player, and he just, every step he takes up, takes it seamlessly.
Yeah, and if you think last night Germany's defence, if he got at them, with good support, obviously, a striker, you need support, but if he got at the German defence, Hummels, Boateng, who's out now for the next match, but he'd eat them.
Yeah, so, and actually, just on the VAR point there, when we looked at it, I know Ronnie mentioned it on commentary, and we were convinced, well, hang on, why didn't the VAR system intervene there and the officials make the referee aware that Kane was offside? But it was the heel of Torres, the defender behind him, who played him onside. And again, to the naked eye, you're never going to see that.
No, and it's good. The right result, the right outcome happened. And that's where the VAR is going to eventually work. But we have some examples, you know. And this referee today, the Egyptian referee, he did the game of service. He did the tournament of service. He was rigorous. He didn't bottle any decisions. He gave them 2 penalties, no messing. And he applied the laws of the game. And he sent a signal out, I think, for the rest of the tournament to other referees. Don't be afraid of doing it. And there was on Friday night when Switzerland played Serbia, there was an outrageous mistake by a German referee, Mr. Felix Brick, and he's one of the top referees in Europe. You always see him in the later stages of the Champions League, and he didn't give a decision, and it was a disgrace. It cost Serbia dearly.
Yeah. Yeah, he is the leading goal scorer at the tournament. A super day for Harry Kane. We're going to maybe temper things a little bit, Eamon. We're going to look at the goal that England conceded, and in fairness to Panama, their first ever goal at a World Cup. Balloy was the goal scorer.
Yeah, I mean, things you work on the training ground. This is one thing you work on. Now, that's a very high line, in my opinion, but if you hold it, the goal scorer Balloy is offside. But if you watch Maguire and Danny Rose, they break the line and the boy taps it. Just hold it there a moment. Now, you see Maguire and Rose didn't have the discipline to hold their ground. They went back, the rest of the defenders stayed. So that's something they will be working, I assure you, on the training ground tomorrow morning. If we play a high line, we hold the high line and we go back together. So that was very bad tactics. That was a really cheap goal to give away, and that will annoy them. It should annoy them, and the call should come from the last guy in the line. Maguire, he's the first one to get back. Danny Rose goes back. The other guys stay. So those two guys out there play the goal scorer onside. That's bad, really bad at this level, unforgivable. So I guarantee you Steve Holland and Southgate will have them out there tomorrow, and they'll have to talk to the guy who's organising. And that's the problem. Is it John Stones? This is where a John Terry comes in, or a Richard Dunn, or somebody who's organising that situation. And they don't have a person. Maguire is new in the team. Stones is too young. Walker wouldn't see it. He's a fullback. Yeah. So somebody has to get a hold of that, right?
Communication is an issue now in modern football. You don't see it as much, people organising, people shepherding. But the breakdown in communication there is causing. You can see hands in the air looking for offside. And as Eamon quite rightly said, Rose, Maguire on a different wavelength.
We saw a shot there of Gomez as Panama scored their goal. The Panamanian coach, he said before the match there were four options. They were either going to win, they were going to lose, they were going to draw, or they were going to get hammered. Now, they did get hammered, but at least they scored the goal. And actually, if you reflect back to the way the match started, Keith, you know, Panama did play some decent stuff, and they had a couple of chances.
Yeah, look, England, I don't think were anywhere near top gear today. They were sloppy at times, especially in the first half. Second half was a little bit of a testimonial tempo to the game. That was a really good opportunity. Horrendous finish, but it fairly sums up the talent that Panama possess within their squad. They're a very, very average team. They're well organised, as we suggested, but as England go further in this competition, they are going to have to iron out these little creases. At times, it's going to have to be defensive structure to soak up pressure and use the attacking pace that they have to counter-attack. This is Ashley Young in a left wing-back position. This is weak defending. Now, he's done well for Manchester United because they haven't got a natural top-quality left-back, which is why he's found himself in there, and hence in the England squad because of maybe the loss of form to certain other players available. Trippier again, ball watching, slid down the side. Now, you look at Hazard, Mertens, Lukaku, who he's going to be facing in the next game. That's a goal, or at minimum, it's testing Pickford. This is really good play, but again, it's a little slide pass inside the wing back. And there you have the back five, which at times it's going to look like against Belgium. They're going to need to up it. The first two games of this tournament were always going to be a different type of test, an easier introduction. Granted, it has its own problems to break the opposition down, but defensively, especially on the left side, I would suggest this England team do not convince me. I think Danny Rose, if he had had a good season at club level, probably would have been the one to start, and Young has found himself in there, but that Young Maguire area of the pitch would certainly worry me. OK, Damien, the England shape and say what is ahead of them. They've work-ons, as Eamon pointed out, in terms of defending those set pieces and stuff like that, but the shape itself, where can and will it be put under pressure?
The bit that worries me is when they come up a bit against a bit of quality and they end up in a back five and they have a three like here, Lingard, Henderson and Loftus-Cheek trying to cover the width of the pitch. It ends up a graveyard shift. You know, you might do it 2-3 times, but the good teams, they'll just end up moving you so much.
And this is what it's going to end up at. a lot against Belgium. I think he's going to have to tweak this system. I really do. I don't think you're going to be able to. I still think he'll remain with the 3/5 at the back. But in front of that, you see Sterling and Kane up the top end. I think Vardy was actually on at this stage. He's going to have to change it. I think it'll be Kane as a lone striker, and I think he'll shore up the midfield. And I really wouldn't be surprised if Eric Dyer starts alongside Henderson against Belgium.
Right, OK. We'll watch for that in the games going forward, and particularly in the Belgian match. We're going to jump ahead, Eamon, and, well, actually, we're going to jump back first. We want to give a lot of credit to this Egyptian referee.
Yes.
We've been talking about decisions in this tournament, and you referenced the Switzerland-Serbia match, Mitrovic, where a penalty was not given, VAR was not involved. And this Egyptian referee, well, the refs are told, you referee the game, forget about the technology. He trusted his own eyes, he knew what he'd seen, and he gave the penalty. So have a look and refer back to... You'll see, actually, Harry Kane here against Tunisia, which was nuts how a penalty wasn't given by a Colombian ref.
We've seen far too much of it, you know. It's terrible stuff. And it's, you know, you're almost compelled as a defender to do it. Because your mates, look at that, Harry Kane on the far post, he's wrestled to the ground. Now, if you don't do it, your mates are getting onto you. Now, that should have been a penalty. So you're introducing anarchy into the game. And we'll see more of it here. This is ridiculous. Mitrovic on the far post with Liechtensteiner and Scher. They've got their arms wrapped around him. This is the German referee. He's standing 15 yards away. Watch this. Liechtensteiner and Scher. They've got him. There's no way he can get off the ground. And the referee's looking at it. I mean, that's the Conor McGregor game. Mixed martial arts. Here we go again. Now, it has to be. The game was poised at 1-1 at the time. And it would have been... Look.
Such a good view of it.
Now, how can the game go on when one referee is standing there and lets them away with that? And the referee today, quite rightly, gave... the punishment, which is a penalty.
We don't know how the match would have, you know, if that had been given.
That was quite near the end.
Switzerland won the match. Serbia did not.
No, but it cost Serbia. Serbia would have got 2-1 in front. And it was, I think, 10, 15 minutes to go. It's huge. This is the World Cup. You know, the whole nation is watching. The whole world is watching. Yeah. But it's unbelievable that a top referee could watch that and not give it, isn't it?
Crazy. But it was his arrogance that I'm sure he was advised by the lads, look, have a look at this. But because he had such a good view of himself, it was his arrogance, I said the other night, that I don't think he decided to go back, look at it properly, because he had to give it.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if he reappears at the tournament, Felix Brick. But anyway, Grisha, the Egyptian referee, certainly has the approval of this panel here in Dublin.